The new Meralco bill for businesses. It's clear and packed with more information. Let's take a closer look at how it can help your business be more efficient. With the new Meralco bill for businesses, all your important payment details are now together in this sky blue section. The cool color and bigger font make for hassle-free reading. In this section, you'll find your billed demand and actual consumption. Your monthly kilowatt-hour rate is now also easier to track. And so is your load factor, which determines if you will benefit from the peak-off-peak program. If you're qualified to shift to the contestable market, use your bill as proof of contestability. You now have up to 24 months of historical consumption data to help you better understand your operating cycle and plan ahead for expenses. Over here is a comparison of your consumption for the previous month versus the current month, as well as your actual demand versus your minimum billing demand, which can tell you if you're optimizing your electrical facilities. And Power Factor helps you see if you're using electricity efficiently. Keep this number above 85. You'll also know how your business consumption affects the environment, so you can explore more earth-friendly ways of doing business. At the back, you can verify what bills you've paid and what remains unpaid, and see how much your actual consumption and billed demand contribute to your total bill. With all these, you can make more informed decisions for your company. The new and improved Meralco bill for businesses, giving more power to you.
Meralco powers the Metro. It also powers businesses with Meralco Biz. With its peak-off-peak solution, businesses get big savings.
From 6 to 33 ice plants in 6 years, my children will soon take over a company.
Energy savings equals best value for quality accommodations. Ang BIS di bitin sa eng bitin.
Ano man ang business mo, may partner ka sa pag-abot ng pangarap mo.
All right, hello and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Power Up Live, brought to you by Meralco Biz Partners. How's everybody doing? I hope that all of you are feeling energized today and ready to participate in this afternoon's webinar. But first things first, please allow me to introduce myself to all of you here. My name is Kevin La Peña, and for the next hour or so, I'm going to be joining you in learning and discovering safety measures that could empower and protect your business in the next normal. All right, so I guess what everyone should be focusing on these days is how to anticipate or how to be prepared for any eventuality, especially now that we're already experiencing typhoons during this season. And worse, the threat of La Nina may greatly affect business operations. And joining us in a bit are safety experts who can best share with us valuable information on business resiliency, as well as electrical safety tips during moments of calamities. And so, before anything else, I hope that all of you are relaxed and comfortable from wherever you're watching us right now, because later on, I'm going to be asking you to join in our icebreakers and, of course, in our Q&A. So, I really hope your Wi-Fi signal is very strong, because who knows, you might even have the chance to win some prizes in some of the fun games that we're going to be playing this afternoon. All right, so now for us to formally kick things off, it's time for all of us to meet the wonderful lady who will formally welcome all of us this afternoon. I'm pleased to introduce to you Meralco Biz Partners Head. Everybody, please join me in giving a warm welcome for Miss Joy Mendoza.
Thank you so much, Kevin, for that generous introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to please acknowledge the presence of Director Texon John Lim from the Capacity Building and Training Service from the Office of the Civil Defense. Thank you so much for joining us today, Director Lim. The Biz Partners Group of Meralco is the segment dedicated to providing services and solutions for our small and medium enterprises. We know that many of our SMEs were actually badly hit by the pandemic, which is why we are here to help you grow your businesses in any way we can. The country has been hit by one crisis after the other since the onset of 2020, from the eruption of Taal volcano, COVID, earthquakes, and even the typhoons that brought flooding and destroyed properties. And with La Nina coming, it seems to never end. Your Meralco Biz Partners Group is here today to empower you with timely and relevant information to help you prepare for any calamity and build business resiliency. For our webinar today, Director Lim will talk about the government's programs that support businesses in terms of calamities. Meanwhile, our speakers from Meralco, engineers June and Brian, will provide you with measures and solutions that can help your businesses operate safely. Again, thank you for joining us this afternoon. I hope that you will learn a lot, valuable lessons that can apply to your businesses at the end of this webinar. We still have more webinars lined up for the rest of the year, and I look forward to seeing you in our future Power Up Live events. Again, thank you so much and stay safe, everyone.
All right, thank you very much, Miss Joy. It's always a pleasure getting to hear from you. And it's nice to see you again, looking great, even though we're all here virtually. All right, so you've heard it straight from Miss Joy Mendoza. It's really a huge advantage for many of our audiences to take part in webinars such as this. So I hope all of you can join in the future webinars as mentioned by Miss Joy just a little while ago. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we're going to be playing a few fun games for this afternoon. So before we proceed, just a little icebreaker for everybody attending right now. I'd like to hear from our audience. So please go to www.menti.com. That's MENTI, www.menti.com, and please enter the code flashing on your screen so you can see the website as well as the code flashed on screen right now. So I'm going to give you guys more time to log on to the website and to encode this little code over here, just so you can join in this little activity for now. Okay, so once again, please log on to menti.com and enter the code flashed on your screens. All right, I hope everybody's ready. I'm gonna give it about 5 more seconds before we start, because once we do, I'm gonna give you guys 30 seconds to type in your answers, okay? So why don't we start right now? 30 seconds on the clock. Here's the question. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, how prepared is your business for typhoons and calamities? Go. All right, so timer is already counting down. A lot of people already putting in their answers. On a scale of 1 to 5, with 5 being the highest, I see a lot of 3s, 4s, 5s. So relatively, on the scale, above average, yung pag-prepare ninyo lahat for calamities. All right, 5 seconds remaining. 3, 2, 1. That's it. Thank you very much to everybody who participated in this little icebreaker. Just a quick recap, as you can see on screen, depending on how big the numbers or the words are on screen, it means that's how much of you put in that answer. So a lot of 5s, which is very good. A lot of 4s too, and a lot of 3s. So hopefully, for those that don't feel too prepared for calamities or typhoons in the future, hopefully ma-address natin yan as we go through this program. All right, so now, at this point, we are now ready to bring you the first of our important presentations for this afternoon. So I'm pretty sure all of you guys are ready at this point. And here to formally introduce our invited expert is the South Area Head of Meralco Biz Partners Group. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Michael Antonio.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, We are privileged to have with us this afternoon a public servant whose commitment to motivate and instruct stems from a personal experience of change. Being the former city administrator of Tacloban City and surviving the typhoon Haiyan in 2013, he added a passionate advocacy in climate change and disaster risk reduction management over the local government and good governance advocacy he was already pursuing. A product of Xavier School, UP Diliman, and Ateneo de Manila School of Law, he further added master's degrees in crisis and disaster risk management and in national security administration, which helps him now in the performance of his duties in the Office of Civil Defense and in the NDRRMC, whose work is focused on building our country's resilience towards sustainable development and national security. He is excited to share with us his knowledge and experience in his current role as the Director for Capacity Building and Training Service from the Office of Civil Defense. Today, he will talk about how the Office of Civil Defense can help business owners be more resilient from all kinds of hazards and threats. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our esteemed guest, Attorney Texon John Lim.
Hello, magandang hapon po sa lahat. So without further ado, allow me to proceed to my presentation. Thank you. There you go. So today what I will be talking about is the Philippine DRMS, or the Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management System, and hopefully, and of course, the inclusion of being prepared for resilience, which we call preparedness for resilience. So again, I'm Attorney Texon John S. Lim of the Office of Civil Defense and the NDRMC, presenting to you this presentation. So the scope of my presentation is as follows. I will be discussing the Philippine Disaster Risk Profile, then our Philippine Disaster Risk Reduction and Management System, which will now show the paradigm shift from disaster management to DRRM, which is Disaster Risk Reduction and Management, the thematic areas in DRM, and approaches from which all of you can now hopefully benefit from. Next slide, please. There you go. So on the Philippine Disaster Risk Profile, quick lang to para mas medyo magkaintindihan po tayo. Alam po natin that we are in the Pacific Ring of Fire. Kaya po tayo maraming earthquakes because we are in this what we call the Pacific Ring of Fire. I'm sure a lot of you knows this. So earthquake continues to be one of our biggest hazards. We are also obviously very prone to the hazard of typhoons, hydrometeorological hazards such as typhoons, droughts, and the like. In terms of typhoons, we are still averaging at 20 typhoons yearly. Kaya nga pinapangalan na po tayong exporter ng typhoons kasi lahat dumadaan talaga sa atin. And worse, in light of climate change, in light of the increasing temperature, which is heating up the oceans, these typhoons are now getting stronger and stronger. But of course, that is not all that... Next slide, please. Okay, but that is not all. Typhoons and earthquakes are not the only hazards we are at risk to. No? Marami po yan. So marami pa rin tayo tinatawag nating mga human-induced threats and hazards such as fires, accidents, pollution, civil disturbance, terrorist attacks, explosion, armed conflicts, and the like. So basically, lahat po ito ay mga tinatawag nating hazards, and it's when these hazards occur, when these shocks happen, and we are now greatly affected by it, like the pandemic, and it is beyond our ability to now cope with the same, dun tayo nagkaka-disaster. Gusto ko lang ipasok po yun, kaya makikita po natin, hindi po natin tinatawag na natural disasters at human-induced disasters. These are but hazards. Remember to keep in mind that hazards need not become disasters. So in terms of effects of disasters, next slide. We have seen so much, no? Marami namamatay maraming sasaktan, at maraming naapektuhan. Whether it leaves them homeless or it affects your businesses and the like, no? So you can see in the last few years from 1905 to 2017, and this is a very, very conservative number, we have lost to almost like 422 billion pesos per year of damages. Sa amin, nung kami po tinamaan ng Yolanda, understood dyan. Alam po natin ang nangyari doon. No? We still, I think while it is 10 years ago na nangyari yung Yolanda, but nevertheless, we do remember the scenes and you can just easily look it up. And you see, lahat po apektado. Whether it's the poor, whether you're poor, you're rich, everyone was affected. Particularly the business sector. At that point in time, patay po yung ekonomiya. Parang nung una po sa atin na dito, sa pandemya. Actually, come to think of it, yung sa pandemic, at least tuloy pa rin yung ilang deliveries, ano? Yung mga ganong klaseng negosyo po. Pero nung time po namin, patay po lahat. And I think this is very important for you to keep in mind. That's what disaster, natural and other human-induced hazards can actually do. So in terms of the World Risk Index, we are still 9th, no, in the world. Dati 3rd, medyo nag-improve po tayo, particularly in light of our lessons from Yolanda and all these other disasters that happened on Boy, going back. Alam mo, sabi nga tawag nga nila sa atin, hindi lang tayo exporters ng typhoons. We are a supermarket of disasters and hazards kasi everything happens to us. Ano? Everything happens to us. But of course, we have been progressing and we're now deemed 9th as of 2019. And this year again, 9th na po tayo. But that is 9th over like a lot. 180 countries. And so we're still very high up there. And allow me to also mention in terms of climate change, climate risk, we are third. Okay. So now going into going into our DRM system. Okay, medyo konting lesson po to on DRM. Because of RA 10121, which was passed in 2010, which is known as the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Act of 2010. We then created the shift, the paradigm shift from disaster manage to disaster risk reduction. Ngayon, malaking bagay po yan. Bakit disaster management, disaster risk reduction? Alam mo, sabi nga nila sa linguistics, importante ang salita. Importante yung mga words, no? So we have to veer away from disaster management and move towards disaster risk reduction. And why? Because disaster risk reduction is a reactive kind of a system. You are parang, di ba, in a play of words, if you try to understand the word disaster management, it's managing disasters. No? So may implication na okay ka lang until may disasters, and now we're focusing on how to now manage it, how to respond to it. So from a top-down, centralized approach where we've, again, focused on the response, we now go to disaster risk reduction, which apart from it's a more participatory it's more participatory in nature. It actually focuses on vulnerabilities in an integrated approach. Disaster risk reduction, it's about preventing and mitigating disasters. So instead of just focusing on managing or responding to it. Alam mo tayo mga Pilipino kasi minsan ang problema natin, hindi natin iniisip anong ang mga pwedeng mangyari hanggang nandyan na. And that is the paradigm shift that has already been embodied in our law, which we hope I can also pass on in this particular session. Now, okay, just to some mere formality. So under RA 10121, we created then, the government, the Philippine government, created the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. I think sanay po tayo yung mga nare-receive nating text, no? I will take this opportunity to actually say that we're really sorry that minsan late dumadating yung mga message, pero hindi pa ho namin kasalanan po yan, nasa service provider. But we are actually working on that. But then again, that is not just our job. Okay, the purpose, as I mentioned earlier, is about reducing disaster risk instead of managing residual ones. So I will share with you a little bit in a few minutes. I will be sharing with you what we are really doing. So now, okay. So this is the composition of the NDRIMC. Basically, makikita po natin, and I would just like to highlight na it's a whole of government and a whole of society approach. Makikita nyo dito sa may ilalim, ayan, kasama na po ang mga civil society organizations and the private sector. So dun sa membership po ng council, makikita po natin ano talaga siya. All sectors of government or at least of our nation, of our society is represented. And it also provides us with a DRM network. Hindi lang po dapat kasi galing sa national lahat. Ang solusyon hindi nanggagaling sa national. So we have here, as you can see, there's a national DRM council, regional DRM councils, provincial, city, municipal, all the way up to the very barangays. So it's important to know this kasi minsan pag tayo, lalo na nagde-negosyo tayo, kailangan alam po natin saan tayo magko-connect. Hindi ho tayo didiretso parati sa NDRIMC. Though at this present, like balik ho tayo dun sa text messaging, alam po namin na nanggagaling sa national, pero most of the functions are on the regional level. In fact, in emergencies, makikita po natin, hindi diretso na yung national ang nag-respond sa inyo. Kung meron hong sa area nyo na nangyari, dapat pa nga una yung barangay. But since yung mga barangay po natin ay pinalalakas pa po natin, so usually it's your city or municipality. And then later on, pag hindi na po kaya yung ng city at municipality, doon pumapasok yung province, yung region, saka yung national. So okay, having said the same, that is our system in the Philippines. What are these four thematic areas that I was mentioning? And is the scope of work of our NDRMC, which I hope you will also pick up because this is very important later on as you now prepare to become resilient. We have to understand that there are four thematic areas with respect to our goal of achieving safer, adaptive, and disaster-resilient Filipino communities towards sustainable development and national security. And these are the four. You have disaster prevention and mitigation, disaster preparedness, disaster response, and disaster rehabilitation and recovery. Now, when we talk about disaster prevention and mitigation, medyo clear naman po yan. It now covers these mga things like early warning systems, forecasting and monitoring, hazard and risk mapping, structural and non-structural interventions, as well as societal interventions. Believe me, ma'am, sirs, or ladies and gentlemen, when we have stronger societies or communities, we are actually stronger ourselves also. For remember, it is not just, lalo na kayo po, yung mga nakikinig po nating mga small and medium enterprises, siyempre, importante rin na may kliyente po kayo. So, kagaya po ng mga ibang mga malalaking kumpanya ngayon, they have been focusing on strengthening also their respective communities through societal interventions to ensure that, of course, may client sila. Na yung purchasing power ng mga tao ay nandyan pa rin. Now, then we can now go to disaster preparedness for resilience. Dati ang pinag-uusapan kasi natin disaster preparedness is only preparing for disaster. What we're talking about now is actually preparedness for resilience, which is something that I hope is, that is actually the main message of this presentation. That we have to prepare ourselves to become resilient, rather. No? So it includes, of course, capacity development, which is readiness and competencies, partnerships and organizing responders, and training drills and exercises. Now, moving on to disaster response. Ito alam po natin, yung sanay po tayo pag yung kagaya mga ayuda at lahat-lahat na. No? But now we are actually pushing. Actually, since matagal na naman po ay ginagawa na natin itong tinatawag na anticipatory action or early action. But I'm proud to say that the NDRMC, through all the partner agencies, particularly the Office of Civil Defense, is actually bumping it up. Ano? Na we can ensure that we can better protect lives and actually protect developmental gains. Now, and the last thematic area, of course, is disaster rehabilitation and recovery. Obviously, alam po natin yan, kailangan pag may nangyaring disaster po, ay kailangan po natin na mag-recover. Pero ang importante po dito, gusto ko i-point out, is yung building back forward better principle. No? We can do everything. Like now, I'm sure nanggaling naman po tayo lahat sa disaster. Even me and my family have our own businesses. And the pandemic really took its toll on us. So ang key na natin dyan is we have to better prepare so that whatever may happen, mas matibay na po tayo na hindi na po tayo maapektuhan like before. So, and it doesn't only refer to the pandemic, whether it's fires or typhoons or earthquakes. By having insurance, it allows us to become more resilient. Diba? So pag may nangyaring sunog and the like, or may nabagyo po tayo, kagaya nung sa atin dito, sanay po tayo, lalo na yung mga nasa Metro Manila, yung nagka-ondoy, ay handa po tayo. Huwag ho natin kalimutan, ang typhoons, saka earthquake at iba-iba pa hong mga ibang hazards, hindi po nako-quarantine sa pandemya. Tuloy-tuloy po rin sila, as we now experience recently with Typhoon Marie. Now, allow me, having discussed the four thematic pillars or areas, allow me to now dwell on the whole of society approach, where everyone must be part of the solution. And that includes all of you po. The first principle there is coordination and collaboration. Importante po na tayong lahat ay magtulong-tulungan. Ang isang tema po ngayon internationally under the UN Office of Disaster Risk Reduction is the hashtag only together. Meaning each one of us, all of you po, as business owners and as members of the community, have a role to play. No? Including Meralco, of course. Malaki ang role ng Meralco dahil isang malaking service provider po sila natin lahat. Okay? So, you have to understand, because I shared earlier yung ating DRM network, you have to coordinate with, first and foremost, your barangays. No? Lahat naman po tayo may kanya-kanyang barangay. Para rin kumukuha ng permit. Mag-coordinate lang po tayo. Let's touch base with them. And then you can touch base with your local or participate in your respective municipalities and cities. Reach out to your local DRMs. And then, of course, there is also the national. Pag talaga po, medyo yung operations nyo is really is national in nature, we are here that you can always reach out to. And then, of course, hindi lang po yung gobyerno ang players po dito. Importante din po yung mga private sector organizations. And amongst them is our partners like Arise Philippines. Arise Philippines is a UNDRR organization that ito yung Arise Philippines is their local arm. And you can look them up in their website. You can type in Arise Philippines and sign up, where you can now get information on how to make or help your respective businesses become more resilient. There is also organizations like PDRF, the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, where they have their for more knowledge and training on disaster resilience and even business service continuity planning. You can look them up and check out their iAdapt system. Marami ta po talaga na mga places where we can really learn how to become more resilient. And of course, the National Resilience Council. So these are just some of private sector organizations that you all can hook up with. Hindi niyo po kailangan na maging malaking negosyo para makipag-partner po sa kanila. Look them up. No? At makakatulong din po sila sa inyo in one way or another. So, as I mentioned earlier, it is about us doing our respective parts and helping ourselves. So you really have to be involved. As mentioned earlier, you can join town hall meetings and the like. Now, moving on to our organizational resilience. Ayan. Minention kanina, marami ho tayong pwedeng hingian ng tulong on this. Pwede ho kami, yung Office of Civil Defense, pwede yung Department of Trade and Industry, pwede rin yung mga partners na binanggit ko kanina tulad ng Arise Philippines, PDRF, and the National Resilience Council. So, we have to be able, as I mentioned earlier, we have to be prepared for resilience. Hindi prepared lang for disasters. Kasi pag nasabi natin, prepared for disasters na. Naghahanda lang tayo para kung may, in case may disaster. When we can actually avoid the same. But in cases, para handa po tayo, important po na matuto na tayo that we learn to take on this concept called business continuity. Okay? And in doing so, of course, we have to first understand our hazards. Ang role po talaga niyan, parang alam mo, kung let's say, ang negosyo nyo po, pwede nyo naman tignan. We have, the government has actually provided programs, no, for you to easily check what risks or hazards are surrounding your company or even your own homes. No? Pupunta lang po kayo, you can type in the, ang ganda po, with the age of digitalization, everything is in our fingertips. All you have to do is actually take action and type it on your laptops or computers or even just your cell phones. No? And you can look up Hazard Hunter PH at makikita nyo po doon kung ano po yung mga hazards that is in your particular area, particularly earthquakes and the like. So importante, alam po natin, for example, kung nasa ano ka rin naman, for example, hindi naman po masyadong rampant na at the government has been actually successful in reducing insurgency. But for example, if you're in an insurgent area, like for example, somewhere in Mindanao or some parts of some regions, syempre yan, kino-consider po natin, yung mga hazards po natin. We have to be prepared. There are things that we can talk about, like emergency go bags and the like, and these are things that we have to be ready with. And as I was mentioning earlier, again, business continuity is a very, very important concept. Now, you can check out our website, the Civil Defense PH, and you can check, you can see in our DRM Knowledge Center materials on disaster resilience or business continuity. Or you can also look through the sites of our business partners. Or just read up on it. Malaking bagay po yun. Business service continuity. But it's important that we develop our plans. Alam mo yun? It is important. I think amongst us, the failure to plan, sabi nga po nila, the failure to plan is planning to fail. So, kailangan po natin pagplanuhan kung paano natin, ano yung mga kailangan natin gawin. And of course, again, it is not just us. We have to see what are the other plans all around us. So, for example, if you're working in a particular mall or a particular building where you have other tenants, then you have to also work with your with the management, the building administrators or mall manager to see what their plans are. You really have to be involved. Then of course, yan, kagaya niya, nakasulat po sa screen, you must know where to evacuate, routes to take, and how we get there. And it's not just you as business owners. It's important that your staff, your employees do know. Saka wag na po nating hihintayin na kung kailan po may disaster, doon pa po may nangyaring incident, doon pa lang tayo maghahanap. Paano natin tatawagan ng number ni Nino? Alamin na po natin beforehand. And as for other, like for example, information on how to prepare your go bags or what to do in cases of flood, before, during, after. Ito po, you can actually just readily check this on our website po. Either the NDRIMC website or the Office of Civil Defense website. And of course, ito na, ginagawa na natin lahat. And thank you actually for being here. Congratulations. You're already building your capacity. Importante po talaga na pinag-aaralan po natin to. And adopt the right paradigms. Capacity building or capacity development, it's really, it's something, sabi nga po nila, you only get old when you stop learning. And in this kind of world that we now live in, where there are just so much hazards, which includes the pandemic, we have to continuously learn. No? Learn how to survive this and how to be more resilient. Dati hindi naman natin pinag-uusapan yung mga ganitong mga minimum public health standards, pero now it's a common thing. Importante po yan. And whether it's typhoons and earthquakes, we must know. We must know in advance. And also see what other ways we can now strengthen our resilience, whether it be through climate and disaster risk financing, or the like. As I mentioned earlier, there are many sites and resources out there in this in the internet. So one of which is, again, as I mentioned, is our knowledge center on the NDRIMC and Office of Civil Defense website. So minsan kailangan natin gustuhin. We have to create that mentality, that paradigm, and instill it amongst us. No? And it's important na we do so because it's not just also about our businesses, but also our families as well. We cannot be resilient as a nation, no? Or you as an organization also, if you yourself, as well as the families and your staff, your employees, are not resilient as a unit. Sabi nga nila, di ba, the family is the smallest unit in our government. So it's important po na sila rin po resilient. So yung mga knowledge about go bags, about having a family emergency plans, importante po talaga yan. Importante. Kasi sabi nga rin, di ba, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link. And that goes for organizations as well. So you can see many organizations, big organizations like the Ayalas, the SM Foundation, SM Prime, Robinsons, talaga they have gone down to teaching their own employees about how to become resilient, how to be prepared for disasters, and more so to prevent them. Minsan ang usapin nga dito sa usaping disaster risk reduction and resilience, minsan rin common sense. Pero I know, no offense to anyone, but sometimes they also, a wise man told me, the problem with common sense is not so common. And we really have to ignite that in everyone. No? And that is the challenge. So one is the buy-in of stakeholders. We really have to make people understand that everybody has a role to play in disaster risk reduction, in our resilience. Hindi kaya po to gawin ng gobyerno alone. Kahit ano pong gawin namin, no? Even if we have the best of programs, we invest in everything, but if the person, for example, like in the recent disaster of Maring, may mga namatay po dyan dahil kasi alam na bumabagyo, lumabas pa rin sila. No? If, for example, if we have a fishing business, alam niyo na pong typhoon signal number 3, 4, lalabasin mo pa ba yung boat mo para mangisda? Diba? When there is already, of course not. You shouldn't. That's putting yourself at risk. That's why it's about reducing disaster risk. So we have to now thus turn it into a way of life. It's like a way of life where we're constantly looking at things as risks. Tignan po rin natin yung mga vulnerabilities ng ating mga staff. Kasi sometimes, kahit tayo, lalo na ngayon sa pandemya, sige, bubuksan natin yung ating restaurant or yung ating business, pero yung staff naman natin, hindi natin tinuturuan or hindi natin binantayan kung paano siya umuwi or kung paano siya mag-commute, no? Or yung basic niya, how he or she handles themselves. Later on, sila rin na magiging risk sa inyo. And then when they spread COVID in your, particularly if they're not vaccinated, then it will now create a bigger problem because lahat kayo then would be, if, knock on wood, sana hindi yung maging severe yung cases nila. But of course, you might have to lock down or shut down your business again until everybody fully recovers. And thus, if it now becomes a way of life, then we start prioritizing. What should we do first? Remember, one of the things that basic principle in disaster risk reduction, as enshrined in the Sendai framework of 2015. Number 3, the third priority action is investing in disaster risk reduction. Ladies and gentlemen, alam ko minsan sa mga negosyo, ayaw natin mag-invest, no? Basta, kung ano mas mura, kung makatipid, sige, tipidin na natin. Hindi po ganun dapat. Minsan po yung investment po natin, whether it's like in disaster risk reduction mechanisms and interventions, will actually pay off. Believe me, it will pay off. Particularly now that there are so much innovations that are now in the market, that is now available to us. And which of course, tayo pa mga Pilipino, mga innovators, kaya mo natin mag-innovate. Pero syempre, wag lang yung basta-basta, wag yung bara-bara. So I'm sorry, just to almost done. I would like to share with you this particular video to hopefully just highlight and really impress upon you what I've been saying over these last few minutes.
Seen me in the news. Hundreds of billions of dollars each year. I destroy lives. Sometimes forever. By now, you probably met me in person. Do I have your attention? So far, you have defended yourself, responded, tried to rebuild what I destroyed. You recovered, and eventually, you forgot.
Yan, isang malaking problema.
Disaster. Respond. Recover. Repeat. Disaster.
Disaster.
Respond.
Respond.
Recover.
Recover.
Repeat.
Repeat. We have to break this vicious cycle. Recover better. Reduce risk. Build resilience. Focus on prevention. Prevention saves lives.
So ayan. So importante po natin maintindihan na kailangan that prevention saves lives. Investing in disaster risk reduction or investing in prevention does saves lives and livelihoods, which I think is very important to us. Importante talaga yan. I'm sure some of you would understand that. I think one of the biggest example dyan is like, again, I use SM kasi maganda yung ginawa po nila. Like in Ondoy, we remember that, di ba? They invested a lot in lifting up or putting up a mall that is on stilts, which saved them from Ondoy. So, knowing that there is that risk there, going back to what I was sharing kanina, understanding risks, then you now invest in disaster risk reduction. And of course, as I said before I close, allow me to share these last two concepts. Next slide, please. It's important also for us to take on climate action. Why? We're talking about COVID-19 now, okay, and as well as other disasters, other hazards. But, and of course, which the bigger problem that we're saying is the recession, which is the impact of COVID-19. But ladies and gentlemen, I tell you, there's a bigger problem that we have to be prepared for or should become resilient to, which is climate change. So we have to start mitigating, ladies and gentlemen. I tell you this, particularly if, I mean, some of us here are young businessmen, some of us here are, sabihin na natin, are creating legacies for their children or companies for their children to manage. I tell you, it's not going to be resilient. It's not going to be sustainable. Lahat yan matitigil if we do not do something about climate change. And what can we do about it? I know it's a big issue. Kahit konti-konti po, magbawas po tayo ng ating carbon footprint. So we also have to be climate smart. By being climate smart, by being able to mitigate climate change and adapt to the same, connecting to disaster risk reduction, medyo doon po yung ano na po natin, yung intersection, then we will become resilient. Not only for now, not only for the next years, but for the years to come. Remember, climate change is talaga, ano yan, it's not just about lives, it's about life itself. And that was something that we speakers were talking about earlier. Love saves, no? Alam ko medyo corny pakinggan. But ito sa mga ginagawa po natin, whether it's be disaster risk reduction, whether it's for our businesses, which now requires you to be a bit, to really reach out to your employees and staff, as well as even your clients, no? Even your clients as well. importante po that we do things from our hearts. Particularly pag ganito, kagaya nito, election na, we have to remember that whether we're preparing for responding to disasters, we have to do so based on our hearts and not our personal interests, race, religion, nor politics. Because ultimately, love saves lives. Love saves lives. I'm also a volunteer at Chuchi Foundation, and sabi nga nung ni Master Shengen, or in any religion that you may be subscribing to, I'm actually Catholic Christian, but in any case, love saves lives. Because if you have love, then you have respect, you have gratitude, and you have understanding, such that you know better. Like even now in this pandemic, when you wear on your mask, it's not just to protect yourself, no? It's also to protect other people in case you're contacted. Kung ikaw pa positive ka sa COVID, we should be caring enough to other people na huwag natin silang hawaan and do what has to be done. And that's the same thing, even for other hazards. Importante that we should have that heart to also think about other people. Hindi porket yung sa atin, tinaasan po natin yung ating, let's say for example, yung ating building or something, or yung establishment po natin para yung tubig lumihis, tapos yung pala pupunta sa ibang tao. Huwag mo natin gawin yun. Kasi later on, I will tell you everything, like they talk, as the talk on climate changes, everything is interconnected and babalik at babalik po sa atin in one way or another. Next slide. Ayan po, last na. So again, I just want to end this presentation with this quote. If you don't invest in disaster risk reduction and risk management, it doesn't matter what business you're in. It's a risky business. With that, maraming salamat po and stay safe, everyone.
All right, thank you very much, Director Lim. A virtual round of applause for that wonderful presentation.
Sorry, medyo na-extend konti.
Hindi, walang problema po, Director Lim. I'm sure a lot of people here enjoyed your presentation. And personally speaking, I was looking forward to hearing what you had to say also. And as mentioned through the chat, I'm sure all of you have been taking note of what's been going on in the chat. If you want a copy of Director Lim's presentation, just let us know in the chat. I'm sure people from our team will send you guys the presentation. And with how many people are requesting right now for your presentation, Director Lim, it just goes to show how relevant and how useful they feel this information is to them. So once again, maraming salamat po sa inyong lahat. All right, I just want to draw your attention towards something also. If you hover your cursor over the screen, over the screens here in the Zoom window, you're gonna see at the bottom part a Q&A button. Okay, so kung i-hover nyo lang yung cursor nyo over the screen, you're gonna see a Q&A tab at the bottom part of your screen. And if you have any questions that you would like to ask Director Lim, or later on in the program towards Meralco as well, just click on that button, type in your question, and we will try our best to answer the questions that you send our way. Because this is an engaging webinar after all, so please make the most out of this event that we've put together for today. All right, so a little icebreaker again. As mentioned earlier, we're gonna have a few of these as we go along. And this is an opportune time for some of you, or to a lucky few of you, to get a chance to win a special prize towards the end of the program. All right, and all you have to do is just tell me, what was the most important lesson you learned from Director Texon Lim's presentation today? Just type in your answer in the chat box, and the first one to submit an answer will get to win a prize. We will announce the official winner at the end of the program. So again, going back to the chat box, just type in, what was the most important lesson you learned from Director Texon Lim's presentation today? And the first one to do it, or the first few to do it, the official winner we're going to be announcing later on will get to win a prize. Okay? Man, this is going to be difficult to judge. A lot of people typing in their answers already. Director Lim, marami talagang nakinig sa presentation niyo. So thank you very much. Okay, And with that, let's conclude this part of the game. Thank you very much to everybody who typed in their answer. We'll consider all of your answers. Thank you very much to all of you for participating. Okay, so now to move on with our program, I guess it's safe for me to say that you and I both are ready to learn even more, especially since our next speaker is ready with his presentation. Now, to further help you ensure safe business operations, I'd like to introduce you guys to the chairman of the 2021 Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers Electrical Safety Committee. He is the vice president and head of the Organizational Safety and Business Continuity Management of Meralco, who will tell us more about electrical safety measures. Everybody, please join me in giving a warm welcome for Engineer Antonio Abuel Jr.
Hi, good afternoon everyone. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Thank you, Kevin, for that kind introduction. We'd like to also thank Director Lim for that very informative presentation on disaster risk reduction and management. So my topic for today will be electrical safety. Let me get to my slide, please. So my presentation will be in two parts. First is a quick overview of the Philippine power distribution system. And the second part will have a discussion of basics of electrical safety. Okay, first, let me discuss the Philippine power distribution system. So with the advent and implementation of the EPIRA, or Electric Power Industry Reform Act in 2001, our supply chain in electric industry was divided into four segments, namely generation, transmission, distribution, and supply. So generation is a competitive market, while transmission assets remain to be owned by the government and maintained and operated under a concession agreement with the National Grid Corporation of the Philippines. So Meralco, as a distribution utility, has a franchise area of operation that is granted by the Congress of the Philippines. So our retail rates are based on the principle of full recovery and heavily regulated by the ERC. So for Meralco customers, so we provide three-phase and single-phase service with the secondary and primary voltage. Okay. So Meralco is considered the largest electric distribution utility in the Philippines. We have a franchise area of 9,685 square kilometers. This is equivalent to only 3% of the Philippine land area, and we are home to a quarter of the Philippine population. So contrary to what people think that Meralco is all over, we only cover 35 cities and 75 municipalities. So we cover the whole of Bulacan, Cavite, Metro Manila, and Rizal. So certain cities, municipalities, and barangays in the provinces of Batangas, Laguna, Pampanga, and Quezon. So as to date, we have around 7.35 million customers with a peak demand of 7,641, which is equivalent to 70% of the whole of Luzon grid. So proud to say that 50% of the gross domestic product of the country is generated in Meralco franchise area. Okay, so Meralco's distribution system is supported by 132 subtransmission circuits, 834 distribution circuits, and 122 delivery point and distribution substations. So Meralco's network is predominantly overhead configuration, in fact 97%, because this is the most economical and globally accepted standard in terms of cost, safety, and reliability. Okay. So, but as mentioned by Director Lim, the Philippines is located in the Pacific Ring of Fire and the Pacific Typhoon Belt. So our facilities, or not only Meralco, but the entire supply chain, is susceptible to climate change impacts and weather disturbances. Likewise, foreign objects. So if Meralco is affected and vulnerable to these impacts, similarly, private establishments, electrical facilities experience the same. Okay. So to provide an adequate and efficient electric service, Meralco continues to initiate resilient initiatives. So we have this storm hardening program conducted by our networks group to ensure continuous supply of power and minimal disruption whenever calamities occur. So to mention a few, so we replace our old wood poles with taller and stronger concrete and steel poles. So we do continuous and regular tree trimming because trees are a common causes of interruption. And as mentioned also by Director Lim, innovation is key to resiliency. So we install a lot of smart devices so that we can remotely monitor and sectionalize faulted areas of our distribution system. Okay. So for private establishments, I think Director Lim is correct in saying that you should have your own business continuity plan. So adapt mitigation and preparedness plans. So I mean the focus here is on prevention. But the second main strategy should be whether there are calamities or not. We should make electrical safety practices implementation of this as a way of life in our operating principles. Okay, so we have developed this safety tips during typhoons. So before a typhoon comes, if possible, still possible, conduct a quick audit of your electrical system to immediately identify possible vulnerabilities during the typhoon. And it is important to ensure your electrical system and appliances are properly grounded. So if you have the capacity to use GFCI devices for circuits located in damp locations or exterior areas. And this one for continuous power supply, especially for critical sensitive electronic devices, we recommend you install a UPS as a backup only. So if there is a threat of flooding, we recommend you relocate electrical equipment and appliances, especially those expensive ones, into higher floors to prevent water damages. So likewise, if you have the capacity to have generators, either fixed or portable, install it with the corresponding transfer switches and circuit breakers. And of course, if you have generators, it is important that you regularly inspect and test these gensets and ensure that there is sufficient fuel for your genset at least 24 hours. By that time, for sure, the utility will be able to restore power in case of calamities. So during the typhoon, it is important that you do not touch electrical facilities or equipment if you are wet or standing in flood water. So, and if flood waters are rising inside your establishment and the water is almost reaching electrical devices such as convenience outlet, kasi ito po yung pinakamababang electrical device sa ating mga establishmento, we should turn off the main circuit breaker. And then if there are sparking or any hazardous occurrences in the electrical power distribution facility, whether it's your meter, our transformer, or the distribution line, please let us know. Immediately contact your power distribution company. So aside from our hotline, I think our CRS group has a lot of social media challenges where you can reach them and let them know the support that you need. And of course, after the typhoon, and if flooding occurred, do not turn on the main circuit breaker immediately. Have your electrical system and your damaged appliances checked by a licensed electrical practitioner. Second, do not walk in floodwaters to avoid hidden hazards like energized facilities from your neighbors or in public places. And lastly, if you see down power lines, you should stay away at least 10 meters because this is to avoid step potential and the threat of electrocution. Okay. So as I mentioned, not only in calamities that we should consider the practice of electrical safety. So as they say, electricity is required for just about all types of activities and everyday's day-to-day life, both at home and in the workplace. So sabi nga po nila, in the 21st century, nagbago na ang Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So aside from the basic needs, mas importante na raw po ang Wi-Fi. So we cannot live without internet connection. Pero ang sagot ko naman dyan, you won't have a Wi-Fi if you don't have electricity. So mas basic need po ang electricity talaga. But kidding aside, electricity, if not controlled or properly used, can be very dangerous and may result to accidents. So as defined by NFPA 70, that is the National Fire Protection Association, electrical safety is all about recognizing hazards associated with the use of electrical energy and taking precautions so that hazards do not lead to death. Okay. So, talking about hazards, Director Lim also mentioned that everyone should be aware of hazards in their environment. And in electrical parlance, these are electrical safety hazards, which can be potential sources of harm, not only to individual, but to our property. So the most common is unsafe conditions. So una po is exposed energized lines. So you can see from the picture, wala siyang takip. And then another is overloaded electrical circuits or equipment. Dito po sa slide, pinapakita ay isang litrato ng thermoscan. So you can see the yellow color. So that only means ang taas ng temperature nitong device. So it reaches up to a maximum of 65 degrees Celsius na normally dapat around mga ambient temperature of 35 only. So doble siya. Because it indicates it is overloaded. It exceeds the capacity of the equipment or the wire. So another is loose or lack of grounding connection. Makikita nyo, hindi siya naka-terminate. Another is damaged wire insulation. So rodents. Sometimes when your conductors are not within conduits, ito yung mga violation po. So rodents can virtually paste on the insulation that can lead to short circuits. So another is loose electrical connections. And number 6 is the use of substandard appliances and electrical equipment. So always use appliances or electrical equipment with the UL or ICC markings. So this next unsafe condition is blocked or inaccessible panel board. So dito medyo nagkamali po yung construction or expansion. Another is dirt and dust accumulation because of the lack of maintenance and regular inspection. And of course, conductors not complying with the PEC, Philippine Electrical Code, which are installed without the necessary conduits or raceways. Okay. Kung meron pong unsafe conditions, of course, accidents are also caused by unsafe practices. So una po rito is the use of electrical devices in wet or hazardous condition, unless your equipment is waterproof. So yung electrical works carried out by unqualified individuals. Sometimes we ask carpenters, plumbers to do electrical work for us. Hindi po tama ito. And then unrestricted access to energized or high voltage facilities. Usually, you should have signages and nakapadlock and accessible naman yung susi malapit kasi in case of emergency, baka hindi naman natin mabuksan. Number 4 is working on energized facilities without proper skills, tools, and PPEs. So another is not following safe electrical work practices. So specification ratings are not compliant again with the PEC standard. And lastly, we should not use appliances or electrical equipment with incorrect voltage. In this case, if we have imported appliances, usually rated 110, so be careful not to plug it to the local voltage provided by Meralco, which is 230 volts. Okay, so ano po ang risks if we are exposed to those hazard, unsafe conditions, unsafe practices? So ang pinakauna po and the most fatal is electric shock and electrocution. So it is electric current passing through the body. Especially risky yung dumaan siya sa ating puso. So because the nature of electricity is it travels in the path of the least resistance. At ang katawan po ng tao, because composed of water, mababa ang resistance natin. Only the skin has high resistance, but I think 70% of the body is made up of water. And if a person accidentally touches a live energized line, it can offer a complete path to ground when part of his body is touching the ground. So gaano kalaking kuryente ang makakasama sa atin? So a 1 milliampere can be felt by the body. So what is 1 milliampere? It is 1/1000 of an ampere. Ganun kaliit. So when you are exposed to 2 to 10 milliamperes, you get a minor shock. 10 to 25, mawawalan na po kayo ng muscle control. Yun yung nakikita nyo sa mga YouTube videos na hindi na nakakabitaw because the muscle contracts. 25 to 75 milliamperes will be painful and possibly also lead to death. And I think 300 milliamperes, 75 to 300 milliamperes that will last for a fourth of a second will almost immediately be fatal. Okay? So pangalawa po is electrical fires. Sabi nga ng Bureau of Fire Protection, number 1 cause of fire is electrical in nature. Sabi nila, but we object, of course. So overloaded or damaged insulation, loosely connected electrical components such as wires, circuit breakers, and appliances and motors can become an ignition source and start electrical fires. So yan, because yung loose, overloaded will result to overheating, and that heat will be alam naman niyo yung fire triangle. Oxygen is all around us. All you need is fuel kasi nandun na yung heat. Okay? Ang panghuli po is the arc flash or what we call flashover. This is the sudden release of unexpected heat and light energy produced by electricity passing through air. So ito, yung electrocution, kung kumawa kayo, you will get electric shock. Pero dito, just going near an energized facility can cause arc flash. So an arc flash will deliver a temperature of 19,400 degrees Celsius. Sa aming research, ang surface of the sun has a temperature of only 4,900. So much more hotter than the surface of the sun ang may experience mo. So usually people who encounter arc flash, either grabe po talaga ang nagiging aksidente. 4th degree burns or most of the time death. Okay? So as mentioned, I was appointed as chairman of the Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers Electrical Safety Committee in 2019 and also this year. So in order to promote electrical safety practices, so we develop 10 golden rules for the public, for the general public and to also promote electrical safety in the workplace. So we just used HIRAC in developing this. So based from the hazards, so we determined related risk. And based on a safety practitioner, familiar naman po kayo. So there is, in order to control hazards and risks, you will use controls, and there is what we call hierarchy of hazard control. So these 10 golden rules were developed to be applied in all segments of the electric power industry, whether you are in generation, transmission, distribution, or customer premises. Okay. So to start with the 10 golden rules, number 1 is treat all electrical systems as energized. If there is work to be done on any part of the electrical system, if possible, isolate it from the power source and install appropriate tag. The tag which will usually indicate that someone is working on the electrical system and should not be able to restore power without the authorization from the worker. Okay. Next is to ensure that electrical equipment are properly guarded and appropriately grounded. So grounding is very important for 4 main reasons. Number 1, it's for it's to ensure safety of people. Secondly, it will protect your equipment against electrical faults. And then third, it's to stabilize your voltage, because voltage can also damage your equipment. And lastly, it ensures the proper operation of your protective equipment like breakers and relays. Next is install protective devices that are properly rated, set, and coordinated to automatically isolate faulted parts of the system. So these are relays and circuit breakers. Dapat po not only properly rated but also well coordinated. Kasi dapat hindi ang nagtitrip nyo is the main circuit breaker, dapat yung mga branch circuit. The backup will be the main circuit breaker. Okay, pang-apat po is we should always comply with all applicable industry technical standards in the design, installation, and operation of our electrical system. So yung sinasabi po namin, ang lahat ng electrical engineer, ang Holy Bible ay ang Philippine Electrical Code. So if you just follow the standards set in this book, you can be sure that your electrical facility will be working according to your design. And we also adhere to NFPA 70E. This is about electrical safety, but this is North American standard. So the IIEE has launched initiatives to have a local version of this standard. And of course, always, as mentioned earlier, we should consult and engage only the services of PRC licensed electrical practitioners. Sila po yung tinatawag natin ng mga professional electrical engineer, registered electrical engineer, registered master electrician, and of course include na rin natin yung mga TESDA certified electricians which have been pre-qualified by TESDA on knowledge and safe practices. And number 6, ensure that electrical equipment are correctly labeled, conductors are properly coded, electrical diagrams are always available, and safety signages are highly visible. Okay. Regularly monitor loading of electrical system components to ensure they are within the rated capacities. Upgrade immediately if necessary. Ang sabi ko nga po, naging practice natin when we first build a house, so we only have a set of appliances, pero as we grow, dagdag tayo ng dagdag ng load or appliances. So what we are doing is we are now overloading the capacity of our initial electrical system. So dapat na monitor natin yun. So get your loading and upgrade your breakers and wires, and also your service with Meralco. Okay. And for number 8, periodically inspect and maintain your electrical system and equipment. So an annual inspection is highly recommended. Okay. Number 9, so if working on energized facilities, as I said, wear the appropriate PPE and use of the proper tools when conducting electrical works. And lastly, we should, for emergency cases, we should have a disconnecting means for local and manual isolation of electrical equipment during emergencies. In this slide, you can see motors with on and off buttons and disconnect switches. In case they get on fire, kailangan ipatayin muna natin to bago pa siya lumaki. Okay? This is an added tip. So just to make sure that if you encounter electrical fires, do not use water because as I've said, water conducts electricity and using water to extinguish electrical fire may worsen the situation. It can spread the electric current to other flammable surfaces or cause electric shock to the one responding. So ang appropriate po na gagamitin natin sa electrical fire is Class C fire extinguishers or we call them dry chemical. Okay, so these are the 10 golden rules and we encourage everyone to refer to them and use them to safely and profitably manage your own businesses. And again, we encourage everyone to comply with the Philippine Electrical Code. Maraming salamat po.
All right, a virtual round of applause for Mr. June Abuel. Sir, maraming salamat po for that wonderful presentation. I'm sure our audience is going to agree that there are a lot of safety concerns we have to bear in mind, especially when the rains and floodwaters fill our streets. So, to say the least, very timely nga po talaga yung presentation ninyo. Maraming salamat po, sir. And congratulations once again for being elected as chairman of the 2021 Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers Electrical Safety Committee. Thank you very much, Mr. Abuel. All right, so I just want to draw your attention again to what's been going on in the chat box. I see a lot of you have been requesting for the presentation, especially since very relevant nga po yung present ni Mr. Abuel. We just want to announce, as mentioned also in the chat box, that we will be uploading the whole of this webinar on the YouTube account of Meralco, and the link will be sent to all of the registered participants for this afternoon. So again, the entirety of this webinar will be uploaded on the YouTube account of Meralco, and the link will be sent to all of the registered participants this afternoon. Thank you very much for the consideration, Meralco. I'm sure this is going to be useful to everybody watching right now. Okay, so now at this point, I'm thinking that most of you, hopefully most of you, or maybe some of you, may already have some questions or comments in mind. So please, again, do not hesitate to write them down in our Q&A tab below. All you need to do is just hover the cursor on the screen, and at the bottom part of the window, you will see a button with a Q&A symbol. Just click on it, type in your questions or your comments, and we will try our best to address them later on in the program. All right, we're going to be allotting time for your questions just in a little while. But right now, just a quick icebreaker once again. We have room for another trivia question wherein we will get to choose a very lucky winner. And that lucky winner will get to win a prize, which we will be announcing later on in the program. All right, so all you need to do is type your answers into the chat box and pay attention to this question that I'm going to be reading out. Okay, what does PEC stand for? What does PEC stand for? Okay. There you go. If you didn't hear me clearly, the question is there on screen. A lot of our viewers are already typing in their answers. Dami. Okay. So I think I am at liberty to announce what the answer is. Thank you very much to all the type in the answer, but the correct answer is Philippine Electrical Code. Congratulations to everybody who typed in the correct answer here. Ang dami, may mga iba naka-all caps pa. More chance siguro for you guys to be able to be chosen as the winner later on in the program. Okay, so thanks again to everybody that typed in the answer. But now we move on to our final speaker who will share safety tips for buildings and offices. And handling this topic is Meralco Biz Partner Manager from the Metro South area and the president of the Institute of Integrated Electrical Engineers of the Philippines, Northern Cavite Chapter. Everybody, let's all welcome Engineer Brian Palustre.
Thank you, Sir Kevin, for the introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm your Biz Partner Manager, Engineer Brian Palustre of Metro South Zone. Allow me to start my presentation about the safety measures for offices and buildings. Did you know that aside from typhoon or calamity-related safety concerns, Meralco has recorded many safety incidents related to building under constructions? For business owners setting up a new branch or office or those undergoing renovation, it is important for you to take note of these safety tips. Before we go through the safety tips, let me show you the different Meralco lines as mentioned by Engineer Abuel on his presentation. On the left is a 115,000 volts line, the sub-transmission lines, which is 500 times of that of the 230 volts that flow into our homes. Below it is a 34,500 volts line, the primary lines, both of which are very dangerous. Remember that the higher the power lines, the higher the voltage. On the right side of the presentation, you can see the 230 volts, the secondary lines, which supplies electricity to business establishments and homes. Underneath it are the telco and the cable wires. These are the ones you usually see dangling on the streets and pose safety hazards. Actually, hindi po Meralco lines yun. That's telecom wires and cable TV wires. Now that you know that which lines have high voltage, power flowing through it, make sure to avoid these lines when you construct buildings or do renovations, especially during rainy season, as water is a good conductor of electricity. If there's an ongoing construction, please ensure that your cranes, equipments don't touch power lines. The allowable clearance for Meralco's 34,500 volts lines is 3 meters and even more during the rainy season. And be mindful of long items that may be in contact with the power lines. Make sure employees and construction personnel are properly trained and guided when handling materials near the power lines. Every year before the rainy season starts, I recommend that you request for a tree trimming from Meralco if the branches are in contact with the primary lines. And please don't cut it with yourself, as even the tree trimming may lead to a safety incident if not done correctly. Like if your ladder or trimming equipment touch the Meralco lines. Other than the tips I just mentioned, we also have services and solutions that can help ensure the safety of your business operations. Let's start with the free power consult. Whether you are constructing a new office or building or upgrading your facilities, we can provide free consultancy to ensure that it is done safely and correctly. For the site assessment, the Biz Partner Manager may check in advance your proposed sites if this has an existing primary lines and if this is electrically safe and the transformers is ready on the site. You may also confirm to us the capacity requirement you need based on the electrical plan. And if you are investing in a new equipment, we can guide you to avoid the mismatch of the equipment, voltage rating, and the service supply voltage. And if you are upgrading, your facilities, we will ensure that your power supply matches your energy requirements to avoid overloading. And lastly, we are here to answer all your safety and technical concerns. Another solution to your business is the electrical safety audit. It must be done annually to check the electrical wiring installation for your business or offices and ensure it is compliance to the Philippine Electrical Code. This will protect your business from electrical hazard and help you determine if you need to upgrade your electrical facilities. If you need the service, we can endorse you to our subsidiary MServe, which address customers' load side requirements. MServe is one of the country's premier energy management companies providing viable vertically energy solutions. For more info, just visit their website at www.mserve.com.ph or reach out to us through our channels that I will flash later. Licensed electrical engineers, REE and PEE, with vast experience in design, construction, and maintenance are the qualified person to conduct this audit. And our subsidiary MServe have several qualified engineers for this audit. So another free service by Meralco is the Meralco Online. This is a digital platform that allows customer to report safety concerns or brownouts anytime, anywhere from any device. If you encounter any power-related safety concern or brownouts, you may report it via Meralco Online. Just visit this site, https://bit.ly/Meralco outage map. Again, if there's an unscheduled outage in your area, report it and we will update you on the status of the outage. So let Meralco Biz Partner power a brighter tomorrow for your business. Just like what we did for the business owners you can see on your screen. Book a free power consult via your Biz Partner Manager or through the channels flash on your screen. So I just want to share the tagline of the IIEE and the IIEE Northern Cavite chapter, especially during the Electrical Safety Month, the month of May. So electrical safety starts with me. Electrical safety starts with us. Thank you. And that's the end of my presentation.
Electrical safety starts with me. Electrical safety starts with us. Maraming salamat po, Engineer Brian. Wonderful presentation. Thank you very much. To say the least, we definitely learned a lot from this wonderful presentation that you just shared with us. But as useful as that's been, I'd like to go back again to what Mr. Abuel presented to us earlier. There was a bit of his presentation that might be very useful to all of you to keep in hand, that being the 10 golden rules of electrical safety. All right. So if you want to keep that in mind, just so you have reference material, we're going to be sending a JPEG of the 10 golden rules onto the chat box right now. So if you look at the Zoom chat box right now, it should already be there. It's going to be handy for you guys to keep in hand. So please do download it from the chat box, which has been shared right now. All right, so I see it there. Just in case you don't see it, just let us know so we can send it again. But thank you for sharing this with everybody, Meralco. Okay, right now, I think our guests already have some comments and questions that they would like to raise and ask our experts. So for those that want to catch up and type their questions and comments in, inviting you to just hover your cursor onto the Zoom window, and at the bottom part of your screen, there should be a Q&A button. Just click on it, type in your questions, and we'll try our best to address them in a little while. All right, but before we get to that, for those that weren't able to join in our icebreakers for this afternoon, there's one last opportunity for you guys to be able to win yourselves a prize. Okay, same rules as earlier, paunahan lang po ito. I'll read out a question and the first person to type in the correct answer will get to win a prize, and we will be announcing the official list of winners at the end of the program. Okay? Question is, in constructing a building during rainy days, what is the safe clearance from electrical facilities? You can see it on the screen. In constructing a building during rainy days, what is the safe clearance from electrical facilities? Grabe. Ang bibilis mag-type ng mga sagot. It's really nice to see that a good bunch of you were paying attention. Okay, let's leave it at that. 2 million na siguro yung mga sagot na pumasok dito. The correct answer is more than 3 meters. All right, congratulations to those that got it correctly, and thank you for everybody who joined in this little game. Okay, so again, letting you guys know the official list of winners from our trivia games from this afternoon, i-announce po namin in a few minutes from now at the end of the program. All right, but now we have to proceed with our panel discussion. So this is the opportunity for you guys to send your questions in and hopefully to have them addressed by our very esteemed panel of speakers. Okay, so right now, may we call back Attorney Texon John Lim, Engineer Antonio Abuel Jr., and Engineer Brian Palustre. Hello, Director Lim. Hello, Mr. Abuel and Mr. Palustre. Nice to be able to share this window with all of you. So just in case na naka-speaker po yung Zoom na ito sa inyo, hopefully you can put your earphones in because we're going to be hearing the feedback and the echoes from our end. All right? So I suppose we should get things going already. Okay. So I have a few questions that have been sent in already, and I'm just going to jump right into it. Okay? Okay, first question. If in case we need to build a new office or undergo construction in our building, can Meralco provide any help or assistance to help ensure that we do it safely?
I think, Sir Kevin, that's for me.
Go ahead, sir.
Yes, Meralco Business Partner Manager in your area can assist you to have a free assessment if the building you want to construct have a safe clearance near the power lines. With the pre-assessment, the Business Partner Manager also check if there's a need to install additional facilities so you plan better on the opening of your business.
Okay, thank you, Engineer Brian. Really appreciate it. Again, reminding everybody watching now, kung may mga tanong po kayo, just click on the Q&A tab in your Zoom windows and just type in a question. All right? Next question to Sir Jude. You mentioned that because Meralco's lines are overhead, it's susceptible to damages brought by calamities. Are you looking into making it underground instead?
Hi, Kevin. Yes, Meralco is also considering installing distribution lines through underground scheme. But we are very selective because of the cost. As mentioned, an overhead configuration is the most economical standard, and an underground scheme is 6 times the cost. So it puts a lot if we will construct everything in underground construction. So it will put a lot of pressure on the distribution rates. So we keep Meralco's objective is to keep the electricity rates at reasonable cost. So aside from the rates, I think we are really very selective because Metro Manila, especially in Metro Manila, we experience a lot of flooding. So I think it's long term, it will be more problematic for underground system than overhead. But rest assured that Meralco, even though it is overhead configuration, is continuously upgrading its standard. Like we now consider 300 wind speeds of 300 kilometers per hour. So it's really the foreign objects in the trees that are wreaking havoc to our facility, not really the poles falling down by itself. So I think that's why I explained we are continuously doing tree trimming activities. And when there is an oncoming storm, we coordinate with the billboard owners that they should remove it before the typhoon comes. Thank you.
Okay, maraming salamat po, Sir June. Thank you very much for that answer. Okay, next question. I suppose this is to Director Lim. Director Lim, welcome back. Welcome back to the fray. Okay, sir, do you have any trainings and seminars for business owners on business resiliency, and where can I get the details?
Okay, thank you for that question. Actually, the Office of Civil Defense and the NDRMC does provide for trainings. When you're talking about business resilience, no, kasi that's in general talaga. So you need, if you need trainings on DRRM, incident command systems, and all of these other programs that we undertake, no, as a government and as a society, yes, you can access our training lists at our website in OCD. May makikita kayo ng training information management system. And of course, but if you're interested particularly in business service continuity, I would actually suggest you to look to our partners, no? Such as the Philippine Disaster Resilience Foundation, as well as Arise Philippines. Yun makakatulong po. They really have training programs for that. And they're all free.
Okay, Director Lin, thank you very much. Okay, now moving on to our next question. Says here, since we are talking about risk reduction, and we all know that climate change plays a big role in the increasing severity of calamities, what is Meralco doing to decrease this?
Sir Kevin? In Meralco's Power Up Live webinars, we also talk about energy efficiency and government's Green Energy Option Program. Meralco also has sustainability efforts to help reduce dependency on fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emission and lessen the impact of climate change.
Okay, Engineer Brian, thank you very much. We have another question here for Director Lim once again. Says here, does the government have a program that gives go bags to citizens?
Oh yes, the government does through its different implementing agencies. They do have some programs of providing go bags, but these are usually for the basic sectors. Para sa ating mga nasa mga business sector po, talagang medyo sa atin na po yan, But however, when you're talking about go bags, so allow me to take this opportunity to share that once go bag, for example, Kevin's go bag and June's go bag need not be or should not be the same. Gusto ko lang marami naman references on how to prepare a go bag. Pero gusto ko lang i-highlight, minsan nakalimutan ng mga references natin, that you have to take into account the hazards in your area. So if, for example, even if you mga staff mo, for example, you have a business and you want to help your staff become also more resilient, which would now help your business become more resilient, then do make sure that your staff's go bag are area sensitive, no? Has area and hazard sensitive. Also, again, sorry, not also. But of course, also just remember to make sure na yung mga basics naman, may mga basics talaga dyan na masasama like tubig and the like. And since pandemic po ngayon, wag po natin kalimutan yung face mask. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Lim. And if I'm not mistaken, kasama din po sa presentation niyo kanina some suggestions onto what as to what you can include in the go bags, correct?
Yes, actually you will see there merong may slide ako doon. That you will be sharing naman. I'll be sending the PDF shortly.
Thank you, Director Lim. All right, our next question, I think this goes to Engineer Brian once again. It says here, hi there, the vault room is a restricted area of our building under Meralco control. May we request Meralco to conduct annual checks for safety?
Yes, Sir Kevin. Transformer vault room are owned by Meralco will have an annual maintenance po. Pwede po silang mag-request sa nearest Meralco Business Center for the maintenance of the transformer vault room owned by Meralco.
Okay, Engineer Brian, thank you very much. Next question. Does Meralco have a regular program for inspecting and maintaining the transformers and electrical posts? We experience that we still have to manually request for the maintenance of the transformer. Anybody want to take this?
I think, Kevin, I can get that. So we have pole line inspectors who are assigned to regularly inspect our transformers and distribution line. So kung meron lang special request, just let us know through our business centers or biz partners. So they can relate to the technical group this whether it's a hazardous or whether there's oil leaking for the transformer. So pakisabi lang po sa amin. But normally we have pole line inspectors, as we call them, na nag-iikot to look at anything that is that needs to be repaired in our distribution line.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir June. We have another question here. Would it be possible for Meralco to have a risk reduction department for customer to request for safety inspection in the establishment upon request? Sana naman wag masyadong mahal na rate ng bargain pa. Okay, who wants to take this? Probably kayo po, Engineer Brian.
Actually, Sir Kevin, we don't have a risk reduction department, but we do provide assistance for line side concerns. For those side concerns, our subsidiary can help you, like MServe, na recently na-present ko po kanina.
All right, thank you, Engineer Brian. Hindi nakalusot yung pagtawad. Okay. Next question. Hi, Engineer Abuel. Okay, naka-address po sa inyo, Sir June. As stated in your 10 golden rules, number 7, regularly monitoring loading of electrical components. How frequent should we monitor our electrical components? Monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, or annually?
Well, Kevin, what is recommended in the Philippine Electrical Code is an annual inspection, but that's the minimum. So the shorter the interval, the better. I think I would recommend personally quarterly.
Okay, thank you, Sir Abuel. Okay, our next question. Our supply from Meralco is 3-phase. Our load are mostly motors. Is it really safe for our equipment whose rating is 220 to 230 volts if the voltage supplied by Meralco is 240 volts? Anybody?
If your equipment is 220 to 230 volts, actually the nominal voltage supplied by Meralco is 230 volts. You may also ask our BPM or the CSE assigned in your area on the Meralco Business Center to double check the supply voltage on your facilities or on your service so that we could check if this is correct and if it is in line or match on your equipment.
Kevin, can I add to that?
Please go ahead, sir.
If your equipment voltage rating is 230 and you receive 240 volts, at least equipment can tolerate at least plus minus 10% voltage variation. So it will be okay. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much, Sir June. Okay, unfortunately, we have time for our last two questions, with the next being, for you again po, Sir June, how do we minimize power interruptions, most especially during rainy seasons?
Well, during rainy seasons, well, of course, as we suggested, during the rainy season, you cannot do so much. It should be before the onset of the rainy season. So, siguro yung mga most common problems encountered is that water seeps into electrical equipment. In our experience, they don't use the proper enclosures. like NEMA-rated waterproof enclosures. So they just buy from the hardware, but they don't really specify waterproof enclosures. Yon yung isa. Number two, for safety, yun nga, we recommend not just use the ordinary circuit breaker, but use the GFCI or ground fault circuit interrupter. Mas sensitive po siya sa line to ground fault, and any sensing of any slight line to ground fault will automatically trip the breaker. So siguro yung dalawa na yon, and of course isang most common causes of interruption during rainy season is that yung mga connection natin should be properly taped. So usually pagka loose na yung mga rubber tapes and connections, that's when the problem occurs. Okay. I hope I was able to answer that question. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir June. And now for our last question, perhaps Sir June, you can take this as well. In case of toppling of power lines during earthquakes, does the power lines still have, or do the power lines still have electricity?
Well, our distribution system has protection equipment, very sensitive protection equipment. Once our cables and wires hit the ground, in a time of 5 milliseconds, power will be cut off. Of course, there might be cases that it will reclose, re-energize itself, because most of our disturbances are transient in nature, like trees touching the line or kite string falling in our distribution line. And when that happens, it itself clears. So, but in case of extreme, like yung toppled poles na bumagsak na sa ground, so hindi na siya magla-lockout na. We call that circuit lockout. So hindi na mag-e-energize yan. And Meralco will need to look for the faulted part before we restore the circuit. So usually with I explained earlier, we have smart devices now with technology. Nakikita na namin accurately kung saan yung mga problema sa linya. So we can remotely isolate it. But for safety purposes, for conservatism, pag nakakita po kayo ng mga ganong bumagsak na poste at alambre, do not go near. Ang sabi nga namin, it's stay away for 10 meters para sigurado tayo. Just in case na biglang ma-restore yung kuryente for whatever reason. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Sir June, for that response. Unfortunately, this is we're gonna have to cut off our Q&A portion. That was the last question that we're gonna be entertaining for today. But for those that have sent in their questions, don't worry. Yung mga hindi namin nasagot, a representative from Meralco will be reaching out to you after this webinar to address all of your questions and concerns. So thank you very much to everybody who reached out and sent in their comments and questions as well. But before we let you guys go, any parting words po before we proceed with the rest of the program? Perhaps Director Lim, we can start with you.
Thank you, Kevin. So again, I would just like to emphasize that we now have to make that paradigm shift. Kailangan natin baguhin ang ating pananaw sa pag-approach po sa mga disasters. Let's not wait for it to happen. Let's be ready. And when I say ready, that's being ready for resilience. It's about prevention and mitigation. And then also, of course, being ready to respond or to act after. As shared by Sir June and Brian, these are things that we can do, no? Even before something happens to avoid disasters from happening. So again, from us here in the NDRMC and the Office of Civil Defense, from our Chair, Secretary Delfin Lorenzana, and our Executive Director, Undersecretary Yusek Halad, and from myself, maraming salamat po and stay safe everyone.
Thank you, Director Lim. All right, Sir Brian, kayo po, any parting words for our viewers here?
Reminder lang po, lagi po nating tandaan yung 10 Golden Rule by IIEE and Meralco, discussed by Sir June. So again, electrical safety starts with me. Electrical safety starts with us.
Wonderfully said. And last but not the least, Sir June, if there's anything else that you'd like to say, any parting words for our guests this afternoon?
Short lang, Kevin. To save lives, business, and property, practice electrical safety. So sa Meralco po, may liwanag ang bukas.
What a closer. Thank you again to all of our panelists. For everybody watching right now, palakpakan po natin sila. Thank you very much. All right. So again, for those that sent in their questions that we weren't able to address during this Q&A session, don't worry. Someone from Meralco will reach out to you guys for them to address all your questions and concerns. All right. So thank you to everybody that sent in their questions throughout the program. Okay, but right now, it's high time that we get to announcing the winners of the last 3 trivia games that we played during the entirety of the program. So if you're still here with us, pay attention kasi who knows, baka kayo po yung nanalo. Okay? Congratulations, Steph Sandoval from Assisi Development Foundation, Inc. Congratulations, Steph. Next winner, Kim Yel Tabukal from Landev Corporation. Kim, congratulations. And our last winner, Joe Albin Neri from JM Ecotech Solutions Corporation. Congratulations to our 3 winners. Please wait for the message and personal call of our Meralco representatives who will advise you on how to claim your prize. All right. And at this point, I would like to highly encourage all of you to please give us your honest feedback on our webinar for this afternoon, because your comments will be very helpful in the conduct of our future Meralco Power Up Live webinars by clicking the link on the chat box below. So you should see it already there. Please do click, let us know so that we can further improve this webinar and our succeeding ones. Okay. So for questions, concerns, or feedback on Meralco services and solutions, you may contact your biz partner manager or reach out to us through any of the channels flashed on your screen. All right, there you have it. This has been a productive and knowledge-filled afternoon. So once again, thank you very much for being part of this very special webinar. Once again, I've been your host, Kevin La Peña. I hope all of you have enjoyed this afternoon. I hope you continue to enjoy the rest of the day. See you on our next Meralco Power Up Live. Take care, everybody. Thank you very much.